what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Howie?
Hey, man. Yeah, I got Arte Change Connecticut. My friend Jim hooked me up with that guy, and he asked me to do an interview with him.
Yeah, I was having a...
That's how that happened, yeah. A lot of people thinks it's bullshit. Well, you know, like the guy's full of shit. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of weird things. Like, did you listen to it? He doesn't believe that, like, there's a deep state, you know. So I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I did listen to it. It wasn't that long, and I was surprised that you were able to get him because he's been balking. That was the first interview he's ever done, right?
Correct. Yep.
And, yeah, I wish you guys would have just stuck to the subject of George Floyd and not gone off on a tangent about the deep state. I mean, that has nothing to do with him and his, you know... I mean, if we could take apart this George Floyd story as a hoax, I mean, that's an international conspiracy because they have riots in cities even in Europe over this.
That is true. No, there's no doubt about it. But again, the way that it went, it was like he agreed to do it if he could just tell his story, you know, and he got into that, you know, he told it his way, you know, he didn't want to be questioned or anything like that. So, like, it's sort of weird, bro, you know, like, I don't know what to think about it. I don't.
Well, why did it say former attorney? He's not practicing.
The guy's dead. I mean, he's not a former. He's still practicing. It's his former attorney.
Oh, so he's George Floyd's former attorney because he's dead. Because it sounds like he's not an attorney anymore. The way you wrote it. I
could take the word former out. I didn't want to confuse people. But I guess I could do that because he was his attorney in 2016. So I mean that was 3 years ago. You know.
Did you talk to him so that was the whole conversation, or did you talk to him before you recorded?
No, not really. Just pretty much got it going. He didn't have much time. It was rushed. He didn't want to do Zoom. I said, if we do Zoom, it'll sound a lot better. I don't have that much time. So, like, there was a bit of an evasiveness, you know, a little bit. So,
yeah, I think he might be like learning disabled.
Really?
You know, kind of like autistic or Aspergery. I mean, there's a lot of people who have that condition, and you know, it's not like he's not a bright guy. He's like a bright guy, but he has a different thinking process. So I don't know. You know, I would have, you know, maybe that's why he didn't want to talk to me, because I had questions for him, like, you know, tell me about yourself. Because this guy played football with the real George Floyd. Where I know. Right. Or he says he played football against this guy. But, like, he was George Perry at the time, right?
Right.
And, like, why did George Perry need a law guardian? What was his problem that he couldn't represent himself? Or
because he was an indigent homeless drug addict that overdosed, and the state assigned him to take care of the guy. You know, to take care of his affairs because he couldn't do it on his own. You know, like his legal affairs or whatever. That's what he said. Strange, right?
So he was deemed incompetent.
Correct. That's totally up the New World Order alley. You know, like get an incompetent person, you know, that can't really think or function properly, or even better if they're dead, you know, like, but they didn't anticipate the connection. They're two different people, if you believe his story. Then, I remember he looked totally different. The picture of him looked totally different than the picture of the guy that was killed. Or not even killed. He might not even have been killed. The whole thing might have been a hoax.
Oh, hey, Rob. Good morning.
Oh, hey, Maureen. How are you doing? Yeah.
How we dropped off at work. Yeah, but that video, I don't know. That guy, there was something about his hair. The one video I saw that he was, one video he had hair, the other one he was bald.
Yeah. Very weird.
Well, it's interesting that you guys talked about it being a training video, right?
Yes.
So, you know, that makes sense because there were no masks on anybody.
Right.
But then I think they went back and filmed some more afterwards. It's, see, See, the interesting thing about Minneapolis is it's the human child trafficking hub of the United States. It's like the worst in the whole country is right there. And,
wow.
And Jim Rothstein lives there. Jimmy Boots, you know who he is, right?
Jimmy Boots? Why is that not? That rings a bell, but I can't put the face to the bell.
That famous NYPD detective.
Oh, yes. Now I remember.
He's the mayor of a small city of about 300 people that's not far from Minneapolis. It's like northwest of there. Mm-hmm. So he's like an old guy who's a mayor of that city. He grew up there. And that's how he became this famous detective for trafficking, was that when he was on the NYPD, they knew he was from the Minneapolis area, and a lot of the underage prostitutes in New York City had come from that area. So that's how they put him on that kind of a case. And I'd be interesting to talk to him and find out what he knows about the back end that's not getting out here in the national news or in the because no one's called him in relation to this. I mean, to put a pedogate overlay onto the George Floyd story, because there were these gangs and the buildings that burned, and there's some really weird shit up in Minneapolis. And what's the connection between Houston and Minneapolis or Corpus Christi? Corpus Christi. There's a bunch of athletes come out of there, but Farrah Fawcett is from Corpus Christi.
Yes, she is.
And Marshall Applewhite, who's the Heaven's Gate cult leader.
Oh, he was from the Corpus Christi?
I think so, yeah. Those are the only two people I recognize. I looked up in the Social Security Death Index, right?
Right.
For George Floyd. And what's interesting is I got different results from different websites. So I took screenshots. Mm-hmm. So people have that database online, and you're getting different years for that name. People dying. So there's some that they didn't erase, and some that they did. So I think if we can ask them a few questions and get that information out there, somebody will be able to connect some dots that the deep state always leaves some loose ends because they can't cover every base.
Well, that's the whole thing. I think there's a lot. It was very sloppy, which actually is typical. I mean, 9/11 was sloppy. Let's be real. And they did an awful lot of shit on 9/11 that was very sloppy. This seems sloppy too, because they actually picked a dead guy, that they were going to make a legend out of. They created this George Floyd, right? All this weird stuff too. He was supposedly, there was no pictures of him in the coffin, and all this other stuff, and weird connections like that to. There's all this speculation. I found a lot of there's so much disinformation, or so much information, and half of it is not right. When they do that, it's usually they're covering up an op. They try to create all this. Reuters was debunking stuff, and major news outlets were really going in force to debunking and saying that these cops are not Masons, and someone said they were Freemasons, and then they're not Freemasons. So I don't know. All I know is that thing with Minneapolis is true, because in the 80s, I did a paper in college about Children of the Night, and they said back then that Minneapolis was a big hub for sex, for the exploitation of children. So that's probably, that's a story to look into.
Yeah, and why Minneapolis? I mean, it's the headwaters of the Mississippi, but coming out of the Great Lakes, and then so it might be something to do with Canada. The whole NBA connection is weird too, because Stephen Jackson was supposedly friends with George Floyd, and now it might have been Floyd George, a different player, and the Kobe Bryant thing, and now the NBA is all on strike over BLM. They were the first ones to kowtow to China, and they were the first one. They all were kneeling down at the anthem. So somehow the NBA is connected to all this. The Kobe Bryant thing was really, really weird too.
Well, that's what he said. If you remember what he was saying, he said about that it's the NBA, it's Target, it's all these different corporations, and that's what he was. I guess he doesn't see the connection to the corporations and the deep state. I mean, obviously, that's what it's all about. It's not just 40-year people that have been entrenched in Washington. It works through the corporations. There's no doubt about it. I mean, how do you think that all this? Look at the shit with COVID. It's unbelievable. Every corporation jumped on the bandwagon, right? Immediately. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I've been following the George Webb stuff, where George Webb was alleging that there was some kind of trafficking of weapons going back and forth between Houston and Minneapolis, up and down the Mississippi, and they're caching weapons in these places like the building that burned, the nightclub and the radio station. So there's two employers for the so-called George Floyd, which I didn't know until recently. I always heard of La Raza Radio and the whatever it was called, Rancho Nuevo. But there's a second nightclub that he supposedly worked with at the same time, and that guy was his friend and landlord. And that employer or alleged employer was interviewed by a woman in Costa Rica named Mariam Heinen, and she was able to really, really dig at this guy and show that he was lying, that George Floyd didn't work for him. And so there was some kind of weird thing there, that there's this second employer. There
is a lot swirling around this case, Rob, a lot of what you can consider evidence and disinformation. So, wow, it's like, hey, if you'd like to do a Zoom today, we could do one on this, to address this. I have time if you want to do that.
Do you have the ability to record it?
Yes.
Okay, so we could do that. Just let me know what time. I just want to.
Yeah, I just have to do I do sales, but it's mostly it's all on computer and shit. I don't have to see any people. That's what's good about it. But I do have a few things to do this morning, so maybe I don't know, maybe around lunchtime or a little after lunch. What do you think?
Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, I'm available. It's just getting you clowns to.
Oh, dude, I'm down all the time. You could just call me and say, let's do a Zoom, and 9 out of 10 I'll be able to do it. I just get involved in other shit. I'm always working on something.
So you're using your cell phone for that?
For Zoom?
Yeah.
No, Zoom, dude, all you need is you got a camera on your computer, right?
Yeah, I could do Zoom on a phone or a computer, yeah.
Yeah, so you can, so I'm going to do it from my computer. By the way, interestingly enough, they did another number on, this is the third computer they took out on me. So I got a new computer, which is going to be great, because I don't know if you noticed, but the video quality has been higher and in the last couple of weeks, because I just got a new computer.
Oh, you had some really fuzzy lens or some kind of scratched up lens for a while. It was all blurry. I was like, come on, Howie.
It's not even the lens. It was just that the computer was just, old and it wasn't fast, and you couldn't use like 1920 high def. You'd have to use 480, and it would be, it wasn't high def. So it was the computer was a piece of shit. But finally, they smacked it. They hit it again, and right when I was working on something, it just I heard a pulse, I heard a boop, boop, a sound, a pop, and next thing you know, poosh, and it just fucking the whole computer just blew up, just crashed, and that's happened to me 3 times. The third time it's happened.
Do you have the uninterrupted battery power supply thing?
I'm sorry?
Do you have the uninterrupted power supply? It's like this car battery size thing that goes between the wall and the computer.
Yeah, I have whatever you want to call that, surge protector or whatever, or that, to protect the actual computer. But it was a desktop. Now I've got a laptop, so
no, this is like it's not just a surge protector. It's got a battery buffer, so the whole battery would absorb the surge.
I do not have that.
Yeah, it's called an uninterrupted power supply, a UPS, like the Postal Service.
I'm going to have to look into that. But here's what happened. Like, nothing else that was plugged in, and I had other things plugged into the went. I had my cable box. I had my TV. I had my amp. Was all plugged into the same wall outlet, the same thing. And none of those devices got affected at all. In fact, my TV didn't even go off. I'm telling you, they did something to me. They do that. It's happened before. It's something to do with my IP address. And for a while, I was getting they started a couple of days after I got the new computer. It was great because I could do everything, and it was like lightning. Nothing would stop and buffer on me. And then all of a sudden, that shit started happening again. I said, "Damn, man!" So whatever the AI is that they use to search or whatever they do, they figured out I had a new PC. So I try to protect it. I don't keep it plugged in. It's I charge it, and then I use it. When I'm using it, I use it on the battery. I don't use it so it's not connected to the wall. Really weird, man. It's shit, man, that we have to go through. It's unbelievable, and nobody believes this. Not nobody, but most people don't believe this. They just don't believe.
We're crazy.
Yeah, we're crazy, right?
But it's because it's funny. It's nobody believes it's some of the worst. This is some of the worst censorship, and even like back in the 90s and the 2000s. I mean, when they had some of this stuff going on, but still, compared to back then, today is really like one of those action suspense movies where you literally have to, for a fact, someone's watching you on your camera. For a fact, that every little keystroke is being logged somewhere in some underground building in the desert, and there's people who are possessed by demons running the government. Like Michael Aquino died last month. Did you hear?
Yeah, that's right. He just recently passed away. Yeah. Wonder who took over the Temple of Set.
Well, relatives, but basically what they're going to do. And I'm surprised people aren't on top of this. There's only a few people following this shit, but basically, the sect will steer his spirit back into another person, preferably someone born into the sect, and they'll reincarnate him. And that they do this because that's what they do with the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is Buddha. They've done it like 13 or 14 times. They've reincarnated this Buddha, and that's what the Dalai Lama is.
Wow.
Literally, for straight up, that's their religion, is that this guy walking around. Actually, this guy walking around now probably is not the reincarnation of Buddha, because the Chinese got in the middle of it, the government. So this guy probably, I think they diverted it. But that's what they did with Albert Pike. Albert Pike became Aleister Crowley. And you could see it also with not really non-occult figures like Mark Twain became Kurt Vonnegut. So other people do it too.
I honestly never even heard of this aspect. I mean, I haven't heard of that. I have heard of some different. I haven't heard physically they use some sort of a ritual or something. I mean, it's just I haven't heard of this myself.
Well, it's the story. The Jack Parsons story is a perfect example of this.
Yeah, Jack Parsons.
They were having that demon baby out in the desert, and they're having rituals, and they were trying to put say the Antichrist into a human body with this off the books baby that they were breeding in the dark in their closet or whatever. They're having these sex rituals, and they don't do it with everyone, I don't think, but they do it with their big these important leaders, occult leaders, that, you know, if they can't live for a couple of centuries, they'll do this. It's, you know, that's
well, you hear that all the time, and they put a lot of that in like stories, you know, like, you know, in fictional stories about these people that have always been there, and then, you know, like the pictures of people, like they show pictures of like Nicolas Cage from like the 1800s, and it looks just like him, you know. I've heard that much.
And Travolta, you know, there's a picture of Travolta too.
Yeah. Well, Travolta. Anyone that's involved with Scientology, there's something that there is a connection. I mean, after all, Crowley was his like close friend. It is based on the Luciferian concepts.
Yeah, just look at the pharaohs, what they're doing with those mummies.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, listen, this is a great conversation, but let me call you back because I got to do some shit. And this way I'll give you a call around lunchtime. This way I'll eat lunch and we can get into some depths on all of this and talk about some stuff for a half hour or something like that. So it's not too long, not too short.
All right, Howie, I'll talk to you. I'll keep the battery charged up.
Yep, good. All right, talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.